or NPR will ask them. And then I could switch to the other side and say, well, here's how we need to make sure to say that. And we'll walk through some of these strategies and tips and conversation over the course of time. But let me kind of establish one core distinction here, is why do we need public relations? Well, I can tell you, each and every one of us need to understand how public relations work, because someone right here, right now, has a cell phone and they're taking a picture of us, right? Or they're streaming us live. Or suddenly you're in the background of a picture of someone took of you that shows up on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and suddenly you have to explain that set there, why you were there, or maybe explain why your client was there. But most importantly, what we want to understand is that PR drives awareness. It really helps, what I believe is to strengthen and extend a brand. And again, we could do an entirely different session on brand building and how we understand our brand. But the important thing here with public relations, and I have this conversation with my clients all the time, is do you understand what your brand is? Do you understand what your story is? And that's where we will build on that a little bit today. We've got to control our story, which is what public relations allows us to do more so than ever today. And I have a session later today at 4 where we'll get into social media. But the fact of the matter is that the traditional way that public relations has worked is we would write a press release, right? Some of you old school PR folks know we write a press release and we distribute it and we make some calls and hope a reporter calls us back. That's one way we have to work today, right? But in conjunction with social media, we've got to use those tools to really gather the story and control the stories. You know, one of the stories I got a call from a potential client one time several years ago. He was in the yacht sales business, high-end yachts. And he called me up and said, Neil, I need your help. I heard great things about you. And so, what do we do now when we're on the phone and someone talks to you about So I pulled up this gentleman's name, and what did I see at the top of the list? He filed for bankruptcy several times. I'm not laughing at him. I said, sir, one of the first things we really need to do is we got to clean this up. Oh, well, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's not relevant to my business. So I had to spend time. I never got the contract because we couldn't agree on the fact that he needed to control his story. Right? And if we don't think about how we control our story, then we lose sight of the importance of how important PR is and why PR matters. So let me make a distinction here. Quite often I'm like, what's the difference between PR and marketing? And I don't mean to be literal here, but I do want to make this very clear. And I have to make this clear sometimes in my client meetings and even with any. Public relations is helping me tell the story. For my marketing friends, and I can slip into that marketing phase too, is helping us come up with the promotions and the products and what we're going to sell. And with that in mind, if I'm a good PR person, I'm going to take that and help elevate, extend, and strengthen the brand so that there's awareness about what's going on with that brand, while my marketing and sales people are cranking and measuring the success for theirs. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you get that approach as well. What's the difference between marketing and sales? Marketing, in many cases, is you're going to have to pay for it to really to make it. And you'll hear this distinction of earned and paid. Good public relations folks do it by earned. We can get you publicity and get stories into publications, into media, in print, online, through social, because we have come up with a good story for you that journalists will be able to tell. Now, granted, paid media is what kind of kept me with the job at the newspaper, so I don't want to discount paid media because that's what we need to keep our media companies alive. So let's talk about the media landscape. This is an interesting chart I found that talked about this when I talk about the commoditization of news and content. You think about it, when I started in this business 35 years ago, we had some newspapers, we had television. Fast forward here, and not to say that we all have 1,000 cable channels or satellite channels, of which we probably only watch about 10, right, on any given day. But there's a lot of content out there, right? There are thousands of blog posts every day. I don't know what the data on that is, but I know that there's a great fact that I've used in other presentations that shows that there are millions of blog posts, millions of YouTube posts, and Instagram shares. And this just looked at the content of some of the, what includes some of the traditional media, and what I think is very interesting about this is how BuzzFeed, that did not exist 10 years ago, is producing and sharing as many stories and videos as the Washington Post, New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. So there's a lot of content and stories out there that are circulating and coming from numerous different sources. And what we want to think about today is how this landscape has changed so much that even as the best PR person in the world, there's always going to be content out there we have to be conscious of. Because somewhere, someone in here may share a story about you you have no idea about whether it's true or not. Right? To the amount of content that just exists. And I just use this as an illustration that says there's so much content every day being produced. As public relations professionals, one of the things we've got to do constantly is help manage ourselves through that, focusing on who our client is, our brand is, whether that's our individuals, our companies, our celebrities, our pastors, whatever that is. What's required to be successful at this? Well, I kind of put it in the scope of the 3 C's. Creativity, content, and context. And when we get to our steps, I'll really go into some of this, where this plays out.